if there is no measures in place, what options do you have as well? So where the option is available, working from home using that. Where that's not, we spoke around about putting protection measures in place, whether that's distancing or protective equipment. And then from the employment law perspective, that if they don't fit that self-isolation box, then there was the requirement to attend work. And again, we had a bit of context around about whether you are a business that falls into the category that people do require to come in, or whether, following government advice, you shouldn't be enforcing people to come into the workplace. There are the options of disciplinary and those, but given the circumstances being quite different at the moment, we've discussed that probably severe action morally doesn't sit right within many businesses at the moment, and you might want to look at some further options, either using unpaid or annual leave if people are not coming into work. And then on the other part, we had a further question about if there was any legal implications or not, around about if as a business you're not putting those protective measures in place and you are still requesting that people come into work. John, do you want to kind of add in on that? I was quite light on the notes because I was too busy listening.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we just talked about businesses being conscious of what their obligations are in terms of particularly recent announcements by the government, and we had one example in our group where social distancing measures have been put in place. So I think that the key points that we made there were twofold. One is that you have to take all reasonable steps, whether that's PPE or other measures such as social distancing. But secondly, no great point in having all that good stuff if it's not being communicated properly to the staff. If they don't know these things are happening, then they would have every right to give, in particular circumstances, object. So I think those were the two key points if we're looking at asking staff still to come to work where it can't be done at home.
Okay, thanks, John. And then our second area was round about employees with childcare and caring responsibilities. So what were organisations doing? And we had a good discussion around about what people in our groups organisations were doing. So one individual shared that they used the CIPD template letter and sent that out to their employees and offered to pay up to 2 weeks leave for individuals. Other things we discussed was flexibility around working patterns, moving the focus to output rather than the hours that individuals were doing. And generally communicating to have an understanding across the business that children will be around, so that will cause disruption, whether that is if you're on a work call and children pop up in the background or there's a bit of noise there, or actually just having to flex your hours and you're not available at set times because of that. Also around about using annual leave or unpaid leave as an option as well. And allowing that flexibility to work from home and trying to adapt as much as possible, even if it's perhaps not been a norm within your business to work from home, but actually if it's possible to do that. We spoke about splitting shifts, so if there was a couple of people in the household and perhaps someone can work in the morning and then someone can work in the afternoon, just that flexibility that people can do. And we had one example where the company had issued laptops that children could also use as well, so kind of encouraging that flexibility. I spoke as well around about our business is looking at a calendar and looking where we can set up sessions, remote sessions that children can join that will be age appropriate, whether it's storytelling or playing games, so that actually giving a little bit of a break from for the parents as well, that they've got a focus and gives an activity that the children can join into. And then our final one, which we just started on but ran out of time, was around about what people are doing to ensure health and safety of people working from home. I'll talk a little bit about that, and then I'll ask John to come in because we got cut off just as we started on the legal side of things. So we spoke about if employees are working from home and they're working off laptops, allowing people to take equipment from the office, so whether that is screens or chairs. also spoke about guidance on how to link the laptop into the TV. So if people working and actually it makes sense to see it on a bigger screen, ways you can do that with your smart TV, or allowing equipment to be purchased on expenses. And obviously that depends on your business context and how much flex you have on your budget there. The example we got was monitors on expenses. Things that we've looked at in our business as well as laptop stands and separate keyboard, because that can make a massive difference to how people's posture is at home as well. And then other things like encouraging breaks. So we spoke around about hours creeping over. So it's really easy to have that always on mentality when you are working at home and we can't go out and do anything else as well. So we are quite fixed in our workplace and it's really easy to stretch that. So line managers having the conversations to understand when people are working and encouraging them to take breaks and not stretch and do too many hours as well. John, I'll hand over to you because we didn't quite get onto the legalities of this one.
Yeah, thanks. But can I just say that they say, don't they, the necessity is the mother of invention, and some of the things that are happening are great. Yeah, your company having links to yoga classes and breakout groups. It's all good stuff. But the serious point that arises from it that's been acknowledged in our group is that it's so easy, and I find this myself. When you're sat at a computer at home for the hours just to fly past before you realise how long you've been sat there. You know, a full day and more will go by so easily, and that can have that can present real risks, particularly when we think about RSI injuries and of course the DSE regs, which try to regulate that kind of risk, I suppose. And the quick answer to the question is that there is no relaxation here in health and safety terms, particularly where there's a reasonable expectation people will be required to work from home. I think we might get some leeway in terms of practical risk at the moment if this is going to be short term, but as we've discussed in our group, it doesn't look like it is going to be particularly short term. We're looking at probably a 3-month window if we look at the job retention scheme and how long that's been put in place for example. Those of us who have business continuity plans would have some difficulty in arguing that it wasn't foreseen that employees could be asked to work from home, even where they don't ordinarily, because if we've got a plan there that says, here's what we'll do if we have an emergency and that provides for home working, then there you have it, it's in a policy. And so the regs will bite quite clearly. So there is no relaxation. As I say, I think be sensible, be practical, but be mindful of the fact that where you've already seen that employees can work for long periods and aren't taking the relevant breaks, they've got that information that helps protect them and that's properly communicated.
Fantastic. Thanks very much. Some great stuff in there, guys, as well. Thank you for your group and for Emma and John feeding back. Donna and Kirk, are you guys good to go?
Yeah.
I'll share the screen.
Okay, so where are we? So the first one was around grievance, disciplinary and performance management issues. So should you continue with discipline grievance matters in the current climate? And we've kind of said, well, common sense has to prevail. Everyone will understand if you decide to suspend and not proceed with things, but there may be other issues that are so important, so vital that you just need to deal with them and try and do that as best you can on a remote basis. But clearly it creates all sorts of challenges when you're trying to do that over maybe telephones and desktops and things. So use your good judgment. It was the best advice that we came up with, what is reasonable in the circumstances. And that's the same with the grievance, really. You know, I don't think anybody's going to get too hung up on normally we have strict time bars for these kind of things. yeah, we kind of reflected that sitting in a tribunal defending your position will be a far better place to be than where we are currently. So yeah, use reasonable good judgment and all of that, and decide for yourself about how serious that it is and whether it needs to go forward. The employee pay and contract issues, so some meaty stuff around this. So try to make sure you're equitable in the decisions you're making. Clearly, each organisation, you have to look at your own context. So some organisations are well funded by government and have things in place, or can continue to work with everyone working from home. Other organisations, their funding, their income streams have completely dried up. So, or are, you know, hugely diminished. So it really has to be about context, affordability. What can you do for your staff? What are your policies? How can you apply them sensibly in the current climate? So, so pay people equitably. There are fit notes and things coming through, but again, you know, if that needs to be relaxed, we're certainly not asking staff. We're going on the basis of a self-declaration at this time. Obviously, childcare leave, etc., is still in place. So what are the clear boundaries between sickness, family leave, furlough, etc.? Be really clear about what you mean by that. What else have we got there? Isolation notes. Okay, so there's no statutory entitlement to pay people for emergency leave. I suppose again it comes down to your policies, your practice, and actually, do you have the money to pay people this at the moment? The next one, so do we continue with SSP, other pay options, holiday toil, etc.? And can you backdate that? So it depends on your organisation. Large numbers it will be hard to unpick, but smaller numbers will be easier to manage. Kirk certainly cautioned against, you know, if someone is on holiday, it's holiday. If it's furlough, it's furlough. But you have to justify, you may well be in a position, you have to justify what you're claiming from the government, and obviously that can't be seen to be fraudulent in any way, so you have to be really careful around this stuff. So advice has been given on government announcements. If people are at home and not working, then they are essentially furloughed. If they're available for work but they cannot work because of COVID-19, that looks like furlough. Sickness is sickness, and if staff are furloughed, it's 80% of, we think, the gross pay, with some caps and things. We've acknowledged the limitations of the guidance out there, so we're having to try and understand what that means and interpret that. So there was an example of restaurants closing or charities where, you know, people just did not have the money to pay. So even if their staff were essentially furloughed, what does that mean, you know, if they can't actually pay that? And again, some good advice from Kirk around that, around if you're simply waiting on money to come in and you think you will be able to pay that, it's more about making sure you can communicate that with staff and you keep a watchful eye on the situation. But if you get to the tipping point that you think actually this is no longer viable as a business, then you need to watch your responsibilities around your, sorry, forgive, I'm forgetting the terms here, but you need to watch that you're not going into like sequestration or something. So yeah, that was the charity one. There are obviously claims and things out there, loans, grants available. So I'm sure people are all over this stuff, but you know, there are things getting put in place that may help in the short term. The next one was furloughing any restrictions where some workers are required or not. Sorry, I was just highlighting the key thing is to keep communication. Absolutely, keep talking to your staff, letting them know what your challenges are, what you're trying to do, how you're trying to, you know, your decision making, what you're trying to do for them, what your intention is. People do understand. They're obviously, you know, a lot of stress out there, but people do understand the challenges we're facing.
Can I just jump in there, just on the communication, because I've seen examples through friends of mine who have shared businesses that have jumped straight into really quite faceless, harsh communications, and the impact, I've seen the impact that has on individuals with stress and not feeling supported and not feeling like we're all in it together. And then on the contrast to that, excuse me, our founder of our business has, and I appreciate not about all businesses can do this, but there's ways you could adapt it. He is making sure he's talking through a webinar to the whole business twice a week. He's been very transparent in his communication. He's balancing the, actually this, we're not all going to be fine and dandy through this, but actually this is what we're doing to mitigate things, and actually things are going to be tight, we're going to have to make adjustments, but this is how we'll do it, and we'll do it together. And there's a real contrast there to how that's landed within our business, and people feel confident in our leaders. They feel that we are supported, in contrast to the other, where it was very a faceless letter that went out in a small business, and actually there was no reason for that. They could have communicated in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. It's absolutely critical, isn't it? Okay, sorry. So any restrictions on who gets furloughed? So again, you know, it's if you had to stand and justify your answer, why did somebody get to work when somebody else had to be furloughed? If you have good, you've got to have good reason. You know, make sure that it's equitable, that you are applying all the right normal decision-making processes in terms of, it's not because of any equality issues, it's more about what is essential for the business at the moment. So, and that probably is not normal, but it's about that good judgment. So, in your organisation's context, can you justify it? That's the main thing you need to think about. Furlough on a part-time basis. So with two opposing views on this. So Kirk, obviously the legal advice, he's saying be very, very careful. If you're furloughing people, they are furloughed. There is, we're working with our building federation at the moment, and we have definitely interpreted that differently and said, okay, some staff are furloughed 100%, it's really clear. Other staff, for example, someone administering payroll, they might be able to do that 2 days a week. They're not able to do it for the rest of the week. There's no vital and necessary work that needs to proceed. And this is about cash flow as well. So we have interpreted that very differently. And this is the challenge that we're faced with. There is no guidance from government. So people are having to interpret that based on their own risk assessments of the situation, their own challenges, their own context. So by all means, get that good legal advice. Certainly in my organisation, I know that we are saying, do you know what, if we are in a tribunal, you know, a year from now justifying this, then we're all right with this. You know, we're all right that we've tried to keep people working where we could, and where we can, we will furlough them for that percentage of their working week. So challenging times, we don't know if that's the right decision. You know, the cautious the safer places certainly where Kirk has advised, and that is it's one or the other. Holidays, the view is that holidays should accrue during a furlough period. Job offers, it depends on the contract, but generally, yes, you could retract a job offer. Clearly, situations that have drastically changed. What's this kind of person whose role is not critical, made to continue to work.
I think we ran out of steam on that one a wee bit, didn't we, Donna?
Yeah. Kirk, do you have anything to add in there? Is he on mute, Gary? Or?
Oh, yep, there you go, Kirk.
Okay, that was very sensible to mute me. That was because Donna, that was a brilliant summary, Donna. Just broadly, and it goes back to the first point about policies and things. The policies won't cover this. Just make reasonable judgment calls. If somebody does something really serious and you have to discipline them, then you might have to do the pragmatic thing and do it remotely. If it can wait, it can wait. But seek agreement. Furloughing is definitely the big topic. The risk with furloughing in my all or nothing approach is risk assessing. The very, very short government guidance we have on this, we're all basing our advice on a couple of paragraphs. In the good old days, we used to have legislation. Remember the good old days? We used to have decent guidance. We don't have that just now, and it moves all the time. So I'm basing my advice on my interpretation of what the government are saying, and my interpretation is it's all or nothing. So we should be very careful about why people are off. Are they on holiday? Are they maternity leave? Or are they furloughed? If they're furloughed, we'd want to document that. And the risk is not so much that there'll be a claim against us, we're paying people more. The risk is that when we're relying on the money from the taxman, we're relying on getting the money back from HMRC, and if we misjudge it, and we might have a cash flow problem because they're not going to be paying us when we think they're going to be paying us.
Can I just come in and add to Kirk's comment about the guidance? I think it was updated again yesterday, as far as I could see slightly, and it refers to two different concepts. One is layoff and the other is redundancy. In redundancy terms, it explains that it's there as a means to avoid redundancy. Now, layoff and redundancy are distinct concepts, obviously. Layoff being an alternative to redundancy as well. So the guidance itself is not necessarily all that clear, and we wait to see the devil in the detail as to how this is going to be worked out. I think the danger, Donna, to just expand on your point, is that if we take a percentage-based approach, everyone's being sensible right now, and we'll see how this crisis pans out. But at the end of the day, the government is going to have a fairly hefty tab. And it wouldn't surprise me if they will be looking for ways to avoid paying out where they can, ultimately, down the line. And I agree with Kirk's approach. I think the guidance is clear in that it says it's an alternative to layoff. It doesn't say an alternative or where staff would otherwise be part laid off. So I think I would certainly agree with Kirk's view on that. And if they are partly laid off, you might find when you try to claim the money back, when we actually have the detail of how to do that, which we don't have at the moment, you might find the government are saying, well, actually, we won't cover it.
And that's certainly a risk for sure. I think one of our considerations is that equity with our staff in managing the really tight resources at the moment. So there is only so much in the pot. We need to try and manage that in a really sensible and frugal way. And as I say, we've done a lot of work with our employment federations around this, and that's certainly why we have come to the decision that we'll approach it in that way, but totally take on board everything that you're saying that is a risk. We've interpreted this whole furlough as a whole new category, not as layoff or anything else. We've said, do you know what, this is different because we're not going to be in a position where we're going to enable staff to instigate redundancies after so many weeks, because it will drain the coffers. It will drag everybody else down. So that's not how we're interpreting it. How risky that is, well, remains to be seen. But, you know, there's a harsh reality out there for lots and lots of organisations. We're trying to be fair. We're trying to make sure there's still a business out there at the end of this. And that's the difficult challenge that lots and lots and lots of organisations are facing.
Great, thanks, Donna. Thank you for everybody who's taken part. I just wanted to do a quick poll because we get the feeling that these sessions are valuable. So I'm going to launch a quick poll. It's a kind of the net promoter type one where you know, 1 is you didn't get much from it, to 10 is you would recommend this session. So could you all just take 2 seconds and vote, please, on how you rated the session 1 to 10, and this lets us know if this is the kind of thing that people are really looking for.
Are you sending us a poll, Gary, or do you just want us to write in?
There should be a poll on the screen. I'm guessing that nobody's voted, so let me just launch the poll again. Launch poll.
There it is.
Right, sorry guys. Great, I'll just give you 2 more seconds. We've got quite a few people. It looks like the overwhelming response is that people are finding these sessions really valuable. Going to just end the poll there. Great. There's the results. I think an overwhelming positive thumbs up. We were going to try and organise one for next Thursday at lunchtime this time, 1 till 2. So look out for that. I'm just wondering if we should, because we've only got roughly through half the questions, if in the short term we could have arranged another session and invited the people that were at this one to come along as well. So if you're still online and that's still the majority of us, could you type in yes or no if you would be able to come to a kind of quick follow-up session either on Friday morning or on Monday morning? Just type that in the chat, that would be great. So it looks like if we could get something organised maybe for Friday, that would be for Friday morning, that would be great. I'll speak to the panel after this and see what we can do, and then we'll use Eventbrite to send you out the link to join us and confirm the time. Thank you everyone so much for your contribution and help. It's certainly unusual times that we're in, and sessions like this I think is just invaluable to join up our branch community and members to get some sort of solidarity and to kind of help each other and support each other through. So thank you so much for your time. We're going to share the recording, we're going to share the FAQs and the answers and stuff that we've got just now. Enjoy the rest of your day if that's possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Could the panel stay on as well?